listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today, man, we have another show lined up for y'all. Man, we have a special guest. Man, she is an entrepreneur, and the book that we're going to be talking about today, book Out of Love, is about her mother and how she was basically a caregiver for her mother for over 6 years. Her mother was diagnosed with cancer in 2011, but she learned so much from her mother. Her mother was also a business person herself. They had a little family business. Mother taught her a lot of great things. Today, we're going to learn more about her amazing book, Out of Love, and her experience being a caregiver. But we're going to learn a little bit more about Lynn. First and foremost, how you doing, Lynn? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Shamaya, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on. So I kind of gave a little snippet in the intro. We're going to be talking today about your amazing book. It's like a tool set for those who may become, well, I say may, I think a lot of us will sooner or later become caregivers of our parents. You give them a lot of tools and a lot of resources for them to get through those difficult times. So kind of tell the audience a little bit about your story, the process of you finding out the news of your mother being diagnosed with cancer, and then your journey becoming a caregiver.
Sure. As you said, my mom was diagnosed in 2011. Her diagnosis was stage 3C ovarian cancer. And while I know that there are probably many of your audience members who have either been a caregiver or maybe about to be a caregiver, a family caregiver for a loved one at home, there are all kinds of things that can happen, whether it be an accident or another type of diagnosis. So many of my friends have dealt with, dementia and Alzheimer's and everything else. So my book was really written for the purpose of supporting other family caregivers out of my purpose to be of value, to have that experience be of value. And my mom was always the type of very strong woman who wanted to teach everybody everything. She was very smart. And she was smart in different ways than the traditional way. She was smart in the ways of life and leadership. And she was the original entrepreneur in my life, the original marketer, the original foodie in my life. And I'm the oldest of her 5 children. So when she was diagnosed, it was a shock, as you can imagine, because nobody in our family had ever been that sick or had a cancer diagnosis before. And so we were just trying to figure it out, kind of flying by the seat of our pants as to how we were going to navigate all of this new information and a life-threatening diagnosis. And so I always kind of jokingly say that we created a business out of my mom's cancer diagnosis, and she would not have had it any other way. And she relied on me as her oldest child, to take care of a lot of the admin stuff, like the not sexy stuff of life, right? The everyday logistical stuff, the mailing, the bill paying, the filing, all of these things. And she just wanted me to step up and take care of all of that, especially during those 6+ years that we were navigating through what I call the roller coaster of cancer. And there were a lot of gifts that came from it too, but the resources and the systems and the structures that we created, I think, are a legacy. They're an everlasting gift that I can offer to other family caregivers to just try and make it a little bit easier, no matter what kind of circumstance you've been presented with or whatever you're going through. You know, we're already going through so many emotions and trying to figure out how to navigate that, our stress, our worry, our lack of sleep, maybe not taking good care of our own health. And so I really knew that I had to get these resources out to other family caregivers so that they could literally copy them and then adapt them to their own situation, whatever they were living through in their own homes. And also because I was working full time when she was diagnosed. I was part of a marketing team working in Silicon Valley full time. And I knew that I needed to put some structure around this whole thing if I was going to be able to work still and, from, the income that I needed, but then also be present and be fully, there for my mom.
Once again, listen to Refocus Radio, talking to our guest today. And when you talk about your mom, what was she like growing up? Because it sounds like she was very structured. She gave a lot, obviously, because that's what parents do with their children. What was it like growing up in that household? What were some things you learned early on?
Yeah, some of the things I learned early on from my mom was just to be helpful to people and to be kind to people, no matter what. And she always would say, you don't know what's going on in other people's lives. And, everyone deserves your kindness. So before you make any judgments or make any assumptions, be kind to people and smile at people, look people in the eyes. So she always taught me to make eye contact with people. That was really important to her, and to be fully present with people. And when I was a little girl growing up in Los Angeles, she was the type of person in her kind of leadership journey of her own that she was raising 5 children, and my dad was going to school, and people in the apartment complex would come to her for advice. So if they had sick children or if they had anything going on in their lives, they would come to Rosemary. And Rosemary, if she didn't know the answer, she would look it up and she would find out how she could help these people. And even if it was going over to their apartment and bringing them food, she was a really good cook. And so she would make extra food from our family meals, and then she would drop off food, or she would go and sit with the person. And so I grew up watching her be this maven, I guess you would call it at the time, where people really relied on her. And she loved that. She loved the role. And because she was also the firstborn girl in a family of 8 children, she was from a very big ethnic family. And so she was the first girl of those 8 children. And she always was responsible from a very young age for her younger siblings and, helping out with the household chores and all of that. She grew up in the Detroit area. And I remember at one time we lived with my grandparents in Detroit, and there were 3 generations of us. So there were my grandparents, and then my mom and her siblings, and then us 5 kids. So it was even more of a solid kind of a legacy that my grandparents and my mom left for me, which is, to step up and help people. If you have something and someone is missing something, see how you can help that person just fill that gap somehow. Be creative.
Listen to our Refocus Radio, talking to our guest, Lynn Abate-Johnson. And with all that said, leads us to your book, Our Love, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End. And I want to get that perspective of what it was like growing up, because, our parents take care of us, all those years. And you had the honor to take care of your mom for her final 6. When you look back at the journey of becoming a caregiver, outside of the emotional roller coaster and difficult days, what was some of the higher positive spots, if you will, while taking care of your mom?
I love what you said, Shemaya. Sorry. I love what you said, Shemaya, about the honor of taking care of my mom, because it truly was that. And, this was part of my transformation through that caregiving experience, and also through the grief process, is that before that happened, I was I had all of these judgments and assumptions about being around sick people, being around elderly people, older people. And I didn't feel comfortable until it happened to my mom to be around someone who was changing right before my eyes. You know, she went from having this dark brunette hair to then being bald to then having it grow back, and it was completely gray. And all of those stages that my mom went through were gifts in teaching me, this is real. This is life. And life just continues to get what I call lifey, right? This, nobody gets a pass on this kind of stuff. And, a cancer diagnosis doesn't care who you are. And it's just going to hit when it hits. And so one of the biggest gifts that I received was the honor of caring for her, and also the honor of ushering her out of this world, ushering her off the planet. I always refer to it as, she gave birth to me, and then I kind of midwifed her out on the other side. And I also, it's another thing of, the daughter becoming the mother to the mother, which is another conversation in itself. And again, there were gifts there. I felt, to use that word again, it's so apropos, I felt so honored that she trusted me in the way that she did. And even at the point where I was saying, Mom, this is stressful on me. Like, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating right. And she'd say, yeah, but you're the only one who knows how I like things. Because, I would try and get some other people in, and we did get other friends in, but she would never want to pay somebody to come into her home that was a stranger, because she knew that she had enough family members and friends that would kind of take up the slack. And so there were many gifts, and I'm so fortunate that I get to look at it, that I have that perspective now, because it was a much different Lynn before that diagnosis.
And you were the oldest, so how did your siblings contribute? And I'm sure in your book you touch on how they used their abilities to contribute to your mom as well.
Yeah, my siblings all have different gifts than I do. And so it was really great. I used to joke with my mom and say, well, it's a good thing you had 5 children, because we were all able to step up. And yes, as you say in the book, I do mention how, I was kind of the admin, kind of get it done, pragmatic person, and getting things scheduled and receiving the lab reports and making appointments, which I already said, getting things scheduled. And then, another sister would do the cooking and, dropping off healthy meals for her and for all of us, actually. And then another sister would do all the touchy-feely stuff. Like, she would give my mom massages. And my mom was single and living by herself. So my youngest sister would come over and give her massages and help, her to relax and take away some of the pain. We have one brother, and he was able to do some of the things that, the sons don't exactly want to do. And he didn't have to, because he had sisters to do that kind of, bathroom type of really personal stuff. So my brother would take care of the nieces and nephews, pick them up from school, run to the pharmacy and pick up prescriptions, kind of, he would be our go-to person for anything we needed to be kind of a runner. And so it all did work out, because we're all similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, we're raised in the same family. However, we're all very different as well. So yeah, we just kind of had to step up and use our gifts. And my mom knew us better than anyone. So she was kind of in charge. When she was feeling good, she was always the boss of all of us. And so she was very clear in stating what she wanted and how she wanted it. And we did that. We let her lead.
We're talking to Lynn Abate-Johnson. You go to her website to get a free chapter of this book that we're talking about, Our Love. That website is LynnAbaté-JohnsonBook.com/free chapter. Real easy to remember. So dive into the book even more. It's providing those who haven't experienced or might be in the middle of experiencing becoming a caregiver, like we said earlier, tools and emotional support. Someone listening right now who may have not experienced that point in their life yet, caring for their parents or a parent or a loved one, what would you tell them based on what you know from your own experience, how to handle emotion?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because we did not do that. We did not have those hard conversations. And I highly recommend that people get some kind of a planner. I actually have a friend who has, it's kind of a workbook, and it's called the Living Planner. And the Living Planner, it has all of those details in it that you never think you're going to need until you need them. And so those are really important to just go through and fill those out. Even, kind of login information, banking information, contact information, who's the person that you talk to at the bank, who's the person that takes care of these, if you have an attorney, these things, I think, need to be written down, need to be documented before anything really happens, because we never know when it's going to happen. We only know that it probably is. And so because we can't control the timing of it, what we can control is our preparation.
And with that, that's true. If you prepare, you have a fighting chance. If you don't prepare, you have to go off the jump on wherever comes your way. And that's not always easy either. And I mean, none of this with this topic is easy, but I like the title Out of Love because I think that's the only way things can work when things are difficult, is that love ingredient that kind of puts things in perspective and allows you to grow through the process versus being swallowed up by the overwhelming, overbearing parts of the process.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that I'm really aware that it's not always easy for families to have these kinds of conversations. I was fortunate. I had a mom that was around and she was present. She was willing to talk about hard stuff. There are some people that either don't have a relationship with their mom or their dad or whatever. And it's more difficult to broach the subject, to bring these things up. And I've learned over, especially these last many years, since the cancer diagnosis and since my mom died, I've learned to challenge myself to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And as you were saying, Shemaya, I think that it makes a big difference if we can put ourselves in that position of being uncomfortable out of love, right? For the sake of our loved ones and our family members, to be a part of the solution going forward, no matter what has happened in the past. If we can, kind of bring the subject up, and in a moment that's calm and not charged and not intense, I think that it also may go a long way toward relationships that heal over time, before something happens.
Once again, you go to her website and get a free chapter of this from her book, Our Love. Is LynnAbaté-JohnsonBook.com/free chapter. Real quick, got a couple more minutes. You also discover a platform, tool, website that help you through this process for writing journals, actually. And that website is caringbridge.org. Tell us how that kind of helped you through the process.
It's pretty amazing, I have to say, Shemaya. It is the place. And the reason that I love this caringbridge.org is because It's practical, it's accessible. You can get it on your phone as an app. And so I would be sitting in hospital waiting rooms and doctors' offices and the emergency rooms over the weekends, every time we had to take my mom in for something. And I would be writing updates on this journal. And then our gigantic ethnic family and groups of friends, back in Michigan and actually all over the world could find out what was going on with my mom day by day by day. And so that was originally the basis for my book being written. So that at the beginning of every chapter is a journal entry that's abbreviated. It's not as long as the ones that I wrote back then over those 6 years. And then from that, I go into my perspective, because the journal entry was all about my mom and her daily care and what was going on in any moment. Then what follows in the book is my perspective on it and how my personal transformation came about. So, and then I have some quotes in there, and then I have a little call to action at the end of every chapter. So it can really help the reader see themselves navigating through whatever they're going through right in this moment. And the chapters are intentionally, a lot of them are intentionally short chapters. I even recorded the audiobook of it in my own voice, because I know how it is when you're in the midst of being a caregiver. You don't always have time to read a book cover to cover. And I know I don't read books cover to cover, but if you open it up to a certain page, I believe you'll get to that section of the book that would probably help you in any given moment. So yeah, I love that platform, and I shout it out all the time, caringbridge.org. And I don't know what our family would have done without it, because there was no way we were going to be on the phone or texting our family and friends on a daily basis with information. And they were, if we didn't, they would be so worried. So it was a great tool.
Once again, listen to Refocus Radio, talking to our guest, Lynn Abate-Johnson. You can go get her book. It's something you definitely want to share with a loved one and maybe just pass it along. I would love, you can find it, an easy free chapter for you to check out. It's LynnAbaté-JohnsonBook.com/free chapter. Man, time flies by, but first and foremost, I want to say thanks to Lynn for being on the show. And if someone wants to follow you on Instagram, they can follow you at LAJBiz, and they also can find you on Facebook.com/Lynn Abate-Johnson. I want to say thanks again for taking time in your schedule talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.